Welcome back to SA Today Now. The Department of Minerals and Petroleum is expected to announce the new fuel price adjustments this week. Joining us now is Mr. Layton Beard AA spokesperson to give us further insight. Layton, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time and welcome. Some great news, right, for motorists. The first time for this year to have a fuel price drop. But the question is always, Layton, just for how long?
Yeah, it's a tough question. It's the first time this year we've had two consecutive drops. We had one going into June, and we're expecting another one now going into July. So it's two consecutive months where we're seeing a decrease, which is very good news. The department hasn't officially released the adjusted figures for July yet. And I fear that well, not fear, but I think that has a lot to do with the announcement of the cabinet last night by President Ramaphosa. And obviously, there's still a lot of things happening behind the scenes, and that may have resulted in some of the delay in making the official announcement. How long this is going to last, I think it's difficult to say. I mean, obviously, the two main factors that influence the fuel price, the Rand-US dollar exchange rate and, international product prices are both extremely volatile. And, they change on a daily basis. So you have to wait and see over a period of time which way things are going. I think at the moment, Alicia, we're just very happy that we're seeing another significant drop specifically in the price of petrol, which I think is really good news for motorists and for consumers generally.
Absolutely, Layton. Look, so, I mean, in relation to, of course, the cabinet announcement, I mean, there's fresh excitement as well as hope and even high expectation with the appointment of the new cabinet and how they will actually perform. So I suppose a lot is expected in relation to some of these factors, like driving down on inflation, which is a big job for the relevant ministries. Do you think it's possible? And what type of timelines should we give the new administration?
I think you want me to put them in a box and say, okay, by this time. Look, I think we need to be realistic, and I think we need to be fair. This is a new cabinet. This is a new, it's the first time we're having a cabinet of national unity for 30 years in South Africa. There's a lot to still iron out. I think there's a lot happening that we may not necessarily be aware of, and I think it's only fair that we give this cabinet and the people in these very key positions, important positions, some time to get themselves worked into those positions and to understand the challenges ahead. There are obviously ministers who know exactly what the challenges are and will be really geared towards getting that sorted. But from our perspective, I think the first 90 days are going to be critical, and I think we'll see a lot of development in those 90 days. And hopefully all of this is going to work, as you said earlier, Alicia, towards dealing more effectively with the economy than what we have at the moment. Certainly, the fuel price is one of those elements that contributes to inflation. And one of the things that we would certainly like to see is an open, transparent review of the fuel pricing structure, the fuel pricing mechanism, and an interrogation of all the line items on that fuel price. We're not suggesting for a minute that it's incorrect. We just want to make sure that everything that is there needs to be there. And if it doesn't, is there a way that we can deal better with it to buffer motorists and consumers against rising costs when they do occur?
Absolutely. I mean, Layton, you as the AA said that if the expected price decreases are actually realized, that those prices would actually be right in line with the previous years, which was the December rates. So actually, it's still a very heavy burden, right? But I mean, accepted nonetheless. How do you then advise consumers on using fuel sparingly at a time when everything is so costly? I think you just made reference to the current high cost of living.
Yeah, it's such a difficult question to answer, Alicia. I mean, the bottom line is that, people need to look after their vehicles because, a car that's in a good condition is going to use the right amount of fuel, the optimal amount of fuel, ensure your tires are inflated correctly. These are, practical things that people need to consider. One of the things that we always say to people is, are you using your car judiciously? In other words, are you using it when you need to use it, or are you using it when you want to use it? Now, we always suggest to people, drive when you have to, and if you can avoid it, that's something that you need to consider. It's not practical for everybody, and many people like to drive, and they are prepared to take that knock. But if you are counting the cents to make up the rands that you need at the end of the month. You may need to look at the use of your vehicle. You may need to consider, is there an option for me to use public transport if it's available and more affordable than what I'm currently using? So there's an entire exercise that people need to do. What we would advise people to do off the bat now is that if you have budgeted a specific amount for your June fuel and it's going to come down in July, don't adjust that budget. Keep it at that high rate if you are able to do that. Because if that means that when the price goes up again, you've built up a little buffer to deal with the price rise in August. So these are the types of conversations that people need to be having with themselves and interrogating their budgets and finding out exactly where, if at all, there are places where they can cut if they need to.
A very quick one, Layton, before I let you go. I mean, obviously taking into account that serious conversations need to be held around fuel pricing structure that you mentioned, as well as the complete overhaul or modernization of our public transport system. So I want to ask very quickly, what would you then attribute as being the biggest driving, no pun intended, Layton, factors influencing these fuel hikes?
Look, it's absolutely, when we look back at what the reasons were for the increases in the past months, it's been international petroleum prices, demand in global south, the West going into, certain periods where it may require higher fuel usage, the production cuts by OPEC and OPEC plus countries. There are, a number of geopolitical and geofinancial issues that are impacting on oil prices. At the same time, we see that the rand in the past was relatively unstable against the US dollar. That contributed somewhat to some of the increases, not so much the decrease that we're seeing coming in July. But these really are the big factors. So it's international oil prices, and to a lesser extent in the past, it's been the rand US dollar exchange rate.
Layton, thank you so much for that comprehensive update here on SA Today. Mr. Layton Beard, the AA spokesperson, weighing in on the expected fuel decrease here in South Africa.